Welcome everybody to our Week 7 prep for the Garrchampion Draft League. My name is Devman. I am the coach of the Orlando Orricorios. But we're not going to talk about my team. We're not going to talk about the prep that I have to do for my Week 7 matchup. We're talking about the playoffs. We are going to go over the most likely scenarios, and we're going to even go over a chaos scenario for the league in terms of what all the teams are preparing for in this last week of the season in the route to the playoffs. So first, let's talk to the teams that are on the race for the number 1 seed. At the end of Week 6, we do have 3 teams tied at 5-1. We have the Lake Superiors, we have the Lakeside Ladybuzz, and we have the Levincia Lightning Rods, all at 5-1 records, all with a variety of differentials. So they are all trying to get that coveted number 1 seed to get the easiest, or so-called easiest path to the finals. So before we continue into what the playoffs will be, let's talk about how do we determine who gets what seed. First is going to be record. The team with the best record will get the higher seed. If there are 2 teams with the same record, then a head-to-head tiebreaker will be applied if they have played each other. Now, the Levincia Lightning Rods have played both the Lakeside Ladybuzz and the Lake Superiors, so a head-to-head is very much in play for anything involving the Levincia Lightning Rods. Now, if there are more than 2 teams tied at the same record, then it goes into that game differential tiebreaker. So right now, if the season ended today, the Lake Superiors would be the number 1 seed because they have a greater differential than both the Lakeside Ladybuzz and the Levincia Lightning Rods. The next is going to be seeds 4 through 6, with all these teams having hopes for anything higher than that. So we have 3 teams as of right now that are tied at 4-2 records. We have the Ann Arbor Alakazams, we have the Storm Watchers, and we have the Heart-Homeless Honeybuns, all with a wide variety of differentials. And as you can see, 2 of these teams are playing each other in the final week. So there are a lot of positioning in stake for this group of teams, and we'll talk about how their matchups will go shortly. But definitely, these are teams that are already qualified. They have more than enough wins to be into the playoff round. The question for these teams are what seeds are they going to get in order to begin their fight for the finals. And then toward the bottom of the playoff bracket, we have 3 teams really fighting for 2 spots. We have 3 teams all at 3-3 records with a variety of that differential, that KO differential from their first 6 matchups. We have the DC United Tyranitar, we have the Cortando Corphish, and we have the Volton Veluzas, all of whom have major implications because they are not guaranteed playoff spots at all. They all are in pseudo winning in, and in one case they are in a virtual winning in scenario where they have to perform in Week 7 in order to have playoff matches. And then we have 2 teams on the outside looking in that need a lot of help. We have the Charizard Champions and the Orlando Orricorios, both with a 2-4 record. There are scenarios with either one of these teams could qualify. Those would really be the chaos scenarios. And we're actually going to go over one of those just to kind of see how much can happen. But the important factor for both of these teams are their opponents. The Charizard Champions will be playing the Volton Veluzas, and the Orlando Orricorios will be facing against Lakeside Ladybuzz. So their opponents have major implications for the week, so we could not leave them out in terms of the conversation. They are going to play a role in playoff factors. So what's the simplest scenario? How are we going to get to the playoffs in 1 week's time? Well, the easiest one is the winner's supposed to win. The best team are supposed to win every single match. So in that scenario, we will have 3 teams at 6-1, with the Levincia Lightning Rods, the Lakeside Ladybuzz, and the Lake Superiors all finishing with the same record. We would have 1 5-2 team, which would be the winner of the Storm Watchers and Ann Arbor Alakazams matchup. And then we would have 4 teams at 4-3, the loser of the Storm Watchers Alakazam matchup, the Volton Veluzas, the DC United Tyranitars, and the Honeybuns. Those would be our 8 teams. Now, the top 3 seeds and the bottom 4 seeds will be determined based on goal or KO differential. So there's a lot of different variations in that, but this is the simplest scenario for these teams. Every single one of them, except for the loser of the Stormwatchers Alakazam match, would have won their matchups for the week, and they would basically lock themselves into the playoffs. So what are the key matchups for Week 7? Well, first, we've already mentioned it several times. Stormwatchers versus Alakazams. The winner of this is going to be guaranteed a top 4 seed with aspirations and potentials to have a top 3 seed. The loser of this match is going to be basically no higher than a 5 seed and could drop down to the 8 seed depending on differential. So this is a very big match for both of these teams. They are both guaranteed playoff rounds, but they're not sure where they're going to be. And then the next game that's really going to matter is the Cortando Corphish versus the Lake Superiors. So the Lake Superiors have already clinched their playoff spot. They are fighting for a number 1 seed. But in majority of the scenarios, this is a win and in for the Cortando Corphish. There are very few options where they're going to make it into the playoffs with a 3-4 record. So if they can get that 4th win, they are guaranteed playoff matches. And since we've already kind of talked about it, let's talk about a chaos scenario. What craziness can happen? What could upset everything that really would make playoff seeding almost impossible until the very last day? Well, for that, it would be the Charizard Champions and the Volton-Veloozas, where the champions would win, causing both teams to finish with that 3-4 record. The other 2 matches that will cause chaos is the Orlando Orricorios and Lakeside Ladybuzz, and the Huntingdon Houndooms versus DC United Tyrantars. If the Orricorios and the Houndooms win, both the Orricorios and the Tyrantars would also be at a 3-4 record, so we could be in a scenario that looks a lot like this. So if everything goes crazy and the favorites don't win their matchups, there is a scenario where the Lightning Rods and Superiors would finish at 6-1, with the Lightning Rods getting the head-to-head tiebreaker. We have the Lakeside Ladybuzz in the 3 seed or into 4 seed depending on differential from the winner of the Stormwatcher Alakazam match. The loser of the Alakazam Stormwatcher match would still be a playoff team at least the 5, no better than the 5 seed, maybe the 6 seed. And then we have seeds 7 through 11, all at a 3-4 record. So we would have 5 teams fighting for a potential playoff spot. But again, the champions and the Orricorios have a massive negative differential, so they would have to have a lot of other factors go into their potential seeding outside of them pulling the record upsets. But if everything more or less goes the way it's supposed to be, the DC United Tyrantars and the Cortando Corphish would sneak into the playoffs at the 7 and 8 seeds, assuming average victory and goal differentials and the KO differentials. So there's a lot on the line for all these teams. All matchups matter in Week 7. So we just need to see how the records will lie. Definitely excited to see what all the teams bring, seeing how they can line themselves up for potential playoff matches that can see if they can pull off a run to the final.